Today, Mom and I went to Grandma's place, Mom's place, in order to celebrate Thanksgiving with her. I recall waking up around 9 in the morning, and about half an hour later, actually, now that I think about it more, 9 in the morning is when Mom got up. I think I woke up somewhere between 7:30 in the morning and 8:30 in the morning. More likely towards 7:30 in the morning. And it was around 9:30 in the morning that we left for Grandma's place, which is kind of in another part of the state. We got there around noon. And on the way, we had to make a stop for gas, so Mom and I stopped at a 7-Eleven we found. In order to celebrate Thanksgiving with Grandma. We put the food Mom spent the past few days cooking in these two coolers for the most part. For the blue cooler, the bigger one, it was heavy enough, especially once loaded, with food and some ice, which I dumped into the coolers around 9:30 in the morning to help keep the food cool so it wouldn't go bad during our trip to Grandma's place and the trip back. I took one handle of the blue cooler while Mom took the other. And we kind of carried it that way, with us both walking at the same time, each of us at one end. Of that cooler. As for the red cooler, that one could be carried by just one of us, so at different times I would carry that one myself, and at other times Mom would carry that one by herself. It was around 11:15 in the morning, so towards the end of us arriving at Grandma's place, that we came across the 7-Eleven, where I went inside and got some I think they're called Tostitos or Tentillos. I got 3 steak and cheese and 3 taco flavored ones. I think they're fried tortillas with some stuffing, some filling in them. I got a total of 6, or half a dozen, for about $10. I personally preferred the steak ones to the taco ones. Yeah, Mom took a bite of one of the taco ones. The taco ones were still pretty good. Yeah, I was a little hungry at the time, so I don't think that having that right before Thanksgiving lunch, since we ended up having it in the early afternoon, I don't think it really spoiled my appetite. I had roughly this same stuff, only with some cheese and crackers. And then afterwards, I had a slice of each of the pies Mom brought over. Pecan, pumpkin, and apple. The pecan one was my favorite. The pumpkin, my second favorite, I think. And apple was my third favorite. Though they were all pretty good. It came with some full-fat whipped cream. And now it may sound like there's a clock going on in the background. That's because as soon as we arrived at Grandma's place, she presented this clock to me and said that it was a gift. She got it from somewhere. It's so well crafted. It looks pretty good. It's pretty interesting that it's got this pendulum, although it's pretty easy to disrupt. Pretty much the slightest movement of it would disrupt it, but if it is disrupted, it'll the rhythm will return with a bit of time. Yeah, basically, I said that it was a nice gift. Yeah, even though it's a nice thing to have, it's crafted well, even though, to be honest, I don't think there's much need for an analog clock given today's age of digital clocks. Where I think you actually kind of have to go out of your way to not know what time it is. And I didn't really want to have it in my room since it would kind of just clutter it up, and more likely my room is kind of used as something with which, an area in which I work on polystyrene drawings. I brought a bunch of Sharpie markers and a block of polystyrene, a little piece of polystyrene, kind of rectangle shaped. That I found in my sister's room. Right before we left for Grandma's place. Because I thought about drawing a sort of gift for Grandma. But I couldn't really think of anything, and she didn't have any ideas for me. And I felt kind of tired. After having that Thanksgiving lunch and that pie. I pretty much had all of the chiquitos. Yeah, that's how they're pronounced. The chiquitos that I got from 7-Eleven. Pretty much all of them. Mom recommended against me sharing with Grandma. We were done with both the Thanksgiving lunch and the dessert in the form of pie. By 1:15 in the afternoon. Though we stayed until about 4 p.m. And those last few hours were pretty much spent with Mom and Grandma, looking over old photos and documents. Oddly enough, they had a newspaper from 1871 that was saved by somebody else that, oddly enough, looked kind of remarkably well preserved for how old it was. Almost seemed like it was freshly printed to me. We left the full-fat Ready Whip with Grandma, so I used the fat-free Ready Whip since that's the only whipped cream we have. When I asked for it, my grandma gave me an Arizona green tea. So I could have something to drink on the way home, the car ride home. I drank all the milk that we brought over in a sort of plastic water bottle that I got from CSC. I had a glass with Thanksgiving lunch, a glass with the pie, and then a little bit left over for me to drink after that. Yeah, which I, in a sense, drank so the milk wouldn't go bad. I kind of fell asleep or nodded off on both the car ride to Grandma's place and on the car ride back home. From Grandma's place. If I recall correctly, we got home around 6:45 p.m. Though that's partially because at one point Mom took 390 North a little too early. So we ended up going towards, I believe, Cornell or south a little bit instead of where we needed to go to get back home. I think that cost us about 15 or so minutes. At that time, I had taken my glasses off long ago so I could relax in the car. without fear of accidentally damaging my glasses. Thankfully, that piece of polystyrene I brought over wasn't damaged. But yeah, I kind of risked a piece of polystyrene being damaged for no reason in a sort of way. Yeah, most likely I'm going to make some kind of landscape drawing out of that piece at some point. And then give it to Grandma. In a sort of sense, these old family photos and documents that I was sat next to Mom and Grandma in the sort of den room of Grandma's house. I was sat in a rocking chair. And to some extent, playing around with some random name generators, since I think I might need to use something like that for a potential future project. I have some ideas. I did that while looking at some of the old photos and documents relating to the family. I wanted to be careful because that kind of stuff is really precious. You always want to make some kind of copy of the original so you can keep the original in a very safe place and don't have to disturb it. I think that's been done to some extent, but it could be done to a greater extent. As some ancestor in our family has saved all that stuff, I'm figuring that it would be valuable to their descendants someday, and they were right. It was. I made some conversation with Mom and Grandma throughout our whole visit. It was good. Around 7 p.m., I finally had some of the Oreo ice cream cake that we got for my birthday party. I pretty much got it out within a minute or two of us arriving home, but some time had to be taken. It took a little time to ensure that it would be soft enough soft enough for us to cut slices, in which case I had 2 little slices of that Oreo ice cream cake. Is something, I get a feeling maybe we got home around 6:30, and then maybe the first 15 minutes was spent loading those 2 coolers to where they are now from the back of the car, the sort of back compartment of it, or the sort of trunk of it, but I don't know if you can really call it a trunk because it's not really shaped much like one, at least not what you would expect of a trunk. The first 15 minutes were spent unloading some stuff for Mom, and then the next 15 minutes kind of spent waiting to thaw out the Oreo ice cream cake, and then around 7, at least I had some. I'm less sure about Mom. Maybe she had, I think she had 1 small slice of it with me, though I'm not 100% sure on that. I think that's something I recall, though. And I also brought in that piece of polystyrene, which I had by itself in one of Mom's reusable Wegmans bags, since I was afraid if there was anything else in it, and if it was in any other kind of bag, some damage would come to it. Although realistically, I think to keep polystyrene absolutely safe, you need to have kind of something like my marker satchel container. Though I didn't really think of it at the time, I just thought to bring it in one of Wegmans' reusable bags, kind of made out of fabric, and thankfully that block / piece of polystyrene was perfectly fine.